We also, it's been a practice of this board for quite some time, as my understanding that if the board were to lose one member and there were only 4 members present, that the applicant is always given the option to continue to have a continuance so that there could be 5, a full board present. Or they can choose to proceed with only 4 members present, understanding that they would have to get 3 out of the 4 votes. So we just actually just put that into the rules. That has been the practice of this board before I came. And so we thought it would be a good idea to memorialize it in the rules so that applicants know that is essentially becomes their right to a continuance if they want. Hopefully, if we have one alternate member assigned every week and here and observing and ready to jump in, we won't need to utilize that provision. Let's see. So go ahead.
So, when we appear at our next meeting, approve these rules. Let's say the rules are not and the rules can change, right? My question is that it's not approved that will it be approved? Will it be approved time for our next?
Sure. So that's up to the timing of the board. If there are issues with the rules, you don't have to adopt them as is. It's just like these are just proposed. So the board can have a discussion at the next meeting and say, you know what, that's not really, I'm not sure about this provision. Let's talk about this. And you can hopefully come to some agreement. I would recommend trying to work out any questions or issues so that the board can adopt something at that meeting. But if it doesn't happen, if there's just too much, I guess, too much that needs to, you'd like to go back to the drawing board and we have to move it to July, that can happen.
I guess that's one question of the statement would be, if board members have questions about it between next meeting, they can email.
Yes, please email me if you have any questions or even if you have suggestions. I've done this for another board, is you can send them to me and the clerk, and I can compile sort of a list for next time so that they're sort of all together, or potentially send that out to you before or create a revised draft. I can I can work with whatever you guys throw at me. A couple other things I wanted to point out are the procedures for requesting and granting a continuance, because the initial process stays the same, that if an applicant requests it, timely, I think it's 2 or 3 days ahead of time, that the UDO administrator can grant the continuance. It doesn't have to come to the board. So after that, we've tried to make it a little bit easier for these cases where no one's contesting the continuance, but there may be a very good reason for the continuance. Maybe the parties are trying to work it out, or maybe they get a new attorney. And so trying to save all the parties from having to, because our current rules require, you get one kind of free continuance, and then the second time you have to come before the board. And every time after that, you have to come before the board. So this procedure just tries to make that a little bit easier. So for a second continuance, basically what this does is the board is authorizing the UDO administrator and the chairperson to review the continuance. And if they find that there's good cause and that no one's objecting, the parties, the staff is not opposed to the continuance, no one's opposing it, the board now gives you the authority to grant that continuance. So that they don't have to keep coming back and requesting the same continuance because they're trying to work it out. And, you know, that's a goal, right? Is to hopefully to work things out. So that section has changed, the section on continuances. So I just kind of highlight that for you. The hearing procedures are essentially the same. The only thing I will also point out is exchange of evidence in cases under certain UDO articles. So as I said, more than just zoning cases are going to be coming before the board, and what some of the other boards that currently hear those cases, the Stormwater Advisory Commission hears, you know, the post-construction stormwater, the soil erosion control, and then also the Charlotte Tree Advisory Commission that hears, you know, the tree cases. They have, sometimes those can be very technical, very complex. And so what those boards do is they require the parties to exchange evidence 7 days in advance, you know, whatever documents they're going to present. So that gives the other side the opportunity to review. It's really just out of fairness to the parties. So my colleagues would appreciate that if this board would continue that process. There's a sort of a additional to be determined in here that we'll bring that back to you next month. But we did go ahead and insert several of the articles. This is on page 6 under letter C. Several of the articles where staff and their counsel are requesting that those be exchanged. And if there are any additional ones, we'll bring that to you for June. And Terry, did you want to say anything about that? Or did you want to say anything? I couldn't tell if you were, but okay. But so that process and what the other boards do, and this really, this whole process is modeled after that process, is the parties, if you don't exchange, you know, your documents 7 days in advance, then you're not allowed to present that to the board. The board could consider granting a continuance to allow the other party to review it so that all evidence can be presented. But this is something that, you know, happens in courtrooms all the time, where parties, you know, are required to exchange evidence, exchange documents. So this is not, you know, completely unique. It's just, it really, especially when some of these things are just really highly, you know, technical. Any questions about that? Sure.
Many questions. At least
Sure,
like
sure.
most of my questions, but
Okay.
if there is a current tree board
Yes.
that's going to be dissolved.
No.
So what are they?
So the Charlotte Tree Advisory Commission right now hears appeals and requests for variances under, there's sort of two pieces. One is development regulations, and that's the piece that's going to come to y'all. Then there's other pieces that are non-development related that will stay with the tree commission.
So give an example. So subdivision, you're talking about subdivision, I assume.
I'm sorry.
Subdivision.
Oh, go ahead. You want?
I guess there was just some way administrative something like that they wanted to also the city.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
So I guess kind of like policy changes, they're going to be handling policy changes for the tree.
I think variances from their regulations and appeals. Whereas I think the remaining board will hear more policy and make decisions on policy changes.
So they're going to be focused on the UDO tree ordinance.
Probably, yeah.
And you're expecting that load to increase on that? I'm trying to understand why you're splitting it up.
Sure. So, and Karen Weatherly is the attorney in our office who represents and advises them. So she's much more well-versed on that. So I think anything related to development, so what the UDO was trying to do is to bring everything that's, instead of there being development regulations under the stormwater ordinance and development regulations under the tree ordinance, and then you have the zoning ordinance, and then the development regulations under the subdivision ordinance, is to bring all of the development ordinances, into one cohesive, I guess, ordinance, the UDO, Unified Development Ordinance. But there are still pieces that are non-development related for trees. And hopefully this is a good example. So none of these cases have come before the Tree Commission, so that's why I don't have any examples. The examples I have are the ones that I sent you, cases that you will see where someone wants to build, but they've inadvertently removed trees where they shouldn't have, and then now they're getting a notice of violation because they did not comply with the tree save area, for example. But the tree ordinance, the standalone tree ordinance, non-development related, has certain requirements, like maybe if you have a tree in the city right of way, it's on your property, but it's in the city right of way, and you remove it, that you might get a notice of violation. Or if you trim it without getting a permit, you might receive a notice of violation. So it's not really development related. Is that a good example? Is that on?
My understanding is that this, the purpose is to shift all quasi judicial type decision-making to this board. Is that accurate?
No, so
So-
Tree Commission will still have quasi judicial hearings. They will have appeals, but it's just anything that's non-development related. And, we could ask maybe Tim Porter to come and speak at the next meeting, just real quickly, with maybe a 5-10 minute presentation. He's the Chief Urban Forester, and he's the staff to the Tree Advisory Commission.
Yeah, because obviously we can't answer that question for you. We just know that what we were told is that the development type decision-making would now be your responsibility, be the UDO board's responsibility. And the differences between those nuances, obviously we can't tell you. So maybe we do need to have someone from Tree Advisory Commission come in, Karen Weatherly, who supports them, or the urban forester, to give you some idea of how many we can anticipate. I don't think anyone really knows, since the UDO goes live Thursday. I don't think we really can anticipate if there will be, maybe Solomon can, if there will be an onslaught of new appeals. It's possible.
I think, Kevin, I believe there are some things that are changing in the tree ordinance in the UDO, but it wasn't a lot. So the development committee didn't, there are a few things that are changing. But if you're saying, I guess staff is trying to work out, to say that the attitude we're taking is we're trying to work out things before we have to bring it to the board. But obviously there'll be some things that is just beyond my authority and the other administrative authority that we just have to bring from the board. So we're trying to make sure that we're not opening the door and there's 500 cases every, because ultimately we're trying to, I guess with the UDO, what we're also trying to do with staff is we're trying to break down, is the issue a UDO issue? Is it just a one site off issue, or is it a developer issue? And depending upon what it is, that's how we're going to treat it. Because some stuff, if it's a UDO issue, then we need to write a text amendment and adjust the UDO so that way you guys aren't getting the same thing over and over again. Or if I have to write it, if it's related to zoning, or I have to write an interpretation. If not, one of the other administrators say, can we write an interpretation and then have that adjusted at a later time?
Me, there are quite significant changes in the EDO for the tree ordinance, very significant. You can't put your drip line inside the tree drip line. You can't take down a tree without a permit. Those are significant changes that if tree guys are going to be the ones that take them down, they should be notified that the UDO has changed this and they're going to be required to permit. But not all tree guys you're gonna reach. I think we had this conversation last time. You're not gonna be able to reach all the tree guys. And so we're gonna have issues like this coming up, and I'm just curious, are we expecting, and that kind of leads to my question for Lisa. Is there a pile of cases already on your desk preparing for the UDO to go into effect? Because I know I have many friends that are waiting for the UDO, and they're gonna make the application, taking advantage of the new UDO for triplexes, for example.
Submittals, and our submittal deadline is Friday. And so we take the next couple of weeks to go through them. It could be that some of them are dropped, or some of them aren't necessary because of the new UDO regulations. So what came in is about 12 cases, could seem like they could possibly go to the agenda, but I would highly doubt that that some of them won't drop, because usually during review, even when we're not having a new UDO, we can usually resolve and send out that.
I just asked Karen Weatherly to come down, so if we, she can come down and maybe answer those questions. She's a city attorney who represents urban forestry and I guess staff at the Tree Advisory Commission, so maybe she can answer your questions for you.
And then Kevin, we also, staff did go out and we went to the tree guys, we went to I guess I say, staff has done all they can to go out to the public and speak on the UDO. We've gone to Mecklenburg County, we got names, we've sent emails, we've got University UDO. You're right, there's gonna be someone out there who just doesn't know, there's gonna be a citizen who didn't know and cuts it down, but even, as I tell people, even with our current ordinance, it's been around for 30 years and there was rules in it you would think people should know, and I have many developers who say, I didn't know that was in there. And I don't know if staff can say, you should have known this, that's why they're, again, that's why you guys are here to make that determination. Because if you're gonna ask me to say, are we gonna get that? 100% we are. We're gonna get someone who didn't realize the standards we hadn't got updated. And they're gonna go out there and do something and we're gonna be in front of them.
Just kind of one saying, sorry, said, cases that we may have for us, understands, for us, is it going to be similar to, I think, maybe 1 or 2 cases we had last year that involved tree removal? Something similar to that. I'm trying to get specific.
Yeah, I don't recall any cases that this board has had involving trees, but like I sent y'all maybe last month or right before last month's meeting, some sample decision letters. And so again, there are going to be appeals. It's same types of cases that you're hearing, appeals. So someone's made a decision, the administrator has made a decision, either an interpretation or they've issued a notice of violation because you've done this and you can't do that under the ordinance, and someone is appealing that. So then again, you're going to hear from the staff, and you'll hear from the applicant why they believe that the interpretation of the administrator was incorrect, or they incorrectly applied the ordinance. So again, you're looking for, did the administrator, was there any error? So then the other types of variances, same 4 elements, same 4 elements, you're just looking at a different ordinance. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of peace of mind. You're very familiar with this, peculiar to the property, same element. Hardship was not caused by the applicant, same element.
Remember, and specific, I remember, I think it was because it fell under the historical.
Oh, yes.
I guess my envisioning is for those cases, I think Kevin weren't here, was for those cases be similar to the plan.
That was a unique situation. Something like that will not happen again, because under the UDO, any appeals from Historic District Commission now go directly to Superior Court. So they're not coming here before this board, because that creates a very complicated situation. If one board is reviewing another board's decision, and then, if it goes one way or the other and who appeals, and then now you might have the city versus the city, it's very complicated. So it just like every other board, every other quasi judicial board in the city, an appeal goes directly to Superior Court, so that y'all, that's off of your plate, which is good. Now, we may have one or hopefully no more than one that are sort of still, will still trickle here, before the full transition is made to Superior Court, but, that will be, off your plate. And I can say from the tree cases, at least in the last 18 months, I believe we've only had 4 hearings. So it's not, you're not gonna have a full agenda every week. You're not gonna have, I would be surprised. I shouldn't say that, but I would be surprised if there was a tree case on every month.
Yeah, because you look, staff does, like I said, at least it's correct, staff, we do sit down and try to work out everything before, because again, even for this, Kevin, as developer, going through this whole process, it starts taking time, because what happens is from a land development standpoint, I basically say, if you're gonna appeal a decision, or you're gonna ask for a variance, we can't review plans, we can't do anything on that site until you either get that, so a lot of times, it's going to be, let's find that middle ground and find somewhere we can drift, and most developers are gonna offer that.
And I can tell you from working with the staff in urban forestry, and I can't remember the other, what is Lori's title? Lori Reed? What is Lori? Chief Arborist. Okay, so that, just like staff here, that staff, their goal is to work things out. They might have an appeal filed, or they might have a variance application filed, and they are continually working. They're trying to work it out. They're trying to work it out, because when it comes to, violations, the city's, position generally is that they want compliance. So their goal is compliance. And then even as far as variances, they continue to work with the applicant to find something that's sort of mutually agreeable that they could bring to the board, like on a recommendation agenda or a consent agenda, something that they can live, that both sides can live with. So that's always the goal, and that's always going on behind the scenes, before it gets here, or sometimes then it doesn't ever make it here because it's worked out.
It's like we're gonna have. Now, I guess, is there? Gonna have both the record cases, like starts a day, one time with each case. Is that possible? Like,
Yeah, so it'll be just like your agenda. You have your recommendation agenda and then a regular agenda. And if you have any appeals, it'll all be heard in one meeting. So, when you get the agenda, we want to make sure that y'all are prepared and anticipating that probably going to be here till noon every, or just sort of blocking more of your time, blocking your day. Because Terry, how long is this meeting scheduled for? I mean,
today I'm blocking out 4 hours.
okay, I wasn't sure. I know my calendar, I always have it from like 9 to 4. It's always sort of blocked off just in case.
So,
Oh,
So Karen, the question is, what
Are you able to hear us? Hey Karen, are you able to hear us?
Where there's the mic up top, you might want to check what speaker this is using, because it might not be using the speaker that you have down there. It should be able to give you the option to figure that out.
Thank you.
And Karen also advises staff she's our environmental attorney. So everything under stormwater, post-construction, erosion control, floodplain, all of that also is part of those are her clients. So if you have questions.
Standards in regards to, you haven't put in your buffers or anything that are necessary, driveways, things like that. So kind of get zoning, you're doing both zoning ordinance, because think about how the current code is saying you have your use, then you go to your standards. So it is, because like just the same way, you could have someone, I guess it's possible to get someone who, you could have all your development standards already in place, but like, for example, let's say office district, where someone has all their uses, they have their buffers, they have everything in place, but they're doing a use that's not allowed, where it would just be, hey, you haven't tripped any land development standards, you've tripped a use standard. Or something.
Okay. Explain again what I said.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I'm on speaker. Everybody here? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm so sorry. The types of, at least for the tree regulations and the UDO cases that you would hear on the board, violations of the tree regulations that have to do with the development project, that are they're supposed to keep certain trees and they cut them down, they being the developer. So the tree folks would issue a notice of violation that the developer would then appeal. They can appeal the amount, they can appeal whether we correctly said you can't cut down those trees, but that would be the type of violation. Any tree regs in the UDO that were violated during the project, or even development-related regs that maybe after the project's finished, someone cuts down tree safe, that would come to the UDO. The other thing that would come to the UDO board would be variance requests from the tree regulation requirements in the UDO. Let's say it says you have to keep, an acre of trees, if they file a variance saying we'd only like to keep, half an acre of trees. That kind of thing would come to the UDO board. If there was an administrative decision by one of the tree folks, the arborist, and the developer disagreed with that could be an appeal to the UDO board if it is part of the tree regs in the UDO. Does that make sense?
So, payment in blue, is that gonna cross over?
Did you hear what he said? He said payment in lieu issues?
Yes, if that's part of the tree regulation, if they are, let's say the development project is in an area where we have payment in lieu of tree safe as an option, not throughout the city. So if they wanted to get a variance so that they could get a payment in lieu option, they can submit a variance request for that.
All personal cases, all personal cases.
He asked if all personal cases, like private property owner cases would come to the UDO board.
Only if they were development related and they were following the development regs of the UDO. Issues are going to go to CTAC. Because under chapter 1 of our current code, as it's been amended, what the UDO is looking at is Article 20 of the UDO regarding tree regs within the UDO that are totally development related. So there's a tree in their private yard and they cut it down and we give them a notice of violation. They want to appeal. That's not part of development for the UDO. That goes to CTAC because it was as you said, it's kind of a private property matter, non-development related. Now, if the tree is part of a development project, they're not supposed to, then that would come to the UDO board. Heritage trees are in both the UDO and chapter 21 of the standalone tree ordinance, is what I call it. So all development regs that have to do with trees come to the UDO board. Non-development regulations having to do with trees go to.
Okay, and can you give us an idea of the number of cases you've heard? I think Jill mentioned 4 in the last 2 years.
Yeah, since 160 went into effect, we've had more variance requests than ever, because they have to go to a board now since 160D. So I would think that they're looking at, and we settle a lot, 2 to 4 appeals and 4 to 6 variance requests, but I don't really know with the UDO, but know.
Okay, what about post-construction and the other ordinances that are now coming to the UDO board?
That's right. That would be, I think, built and everything except, there'll be water, water supply, drainage, and then post-construction, floodplain, and erosion control. Those are on the board. It's very much the same as for the tree ordinance. Those are development-related requirements that are within the UDO. So they would be requests for variances and appeals from the administrative decisions or notices of violation. Or maybe even requirements that the staff require that they would be appealing. That's not for the administrative decision. So, let's say were required to put in a detention pond and you failed to do so. And we gave them a corrective action, you have to put it in, or a violation, they can appeal that to the river court, part of the development project. You know, approved plan. It's more just that the UDO board is going to get variance requests. The ordinance. Especially the construction of trees. You know, they don't want to put in somewhere, they want, you know, to do something else. It's more likely to be variance requests than violation appeal. Because honestly, that really tries to work out the violation.
So under, your tree save rights, what if the developers say building a house or land, will they be automatically notified of which trees they should leave along during the planning process, planning reviews, or they will have to call someone to be notified first, rather than, oh, they've already done that, then they got notice.
Did you hear that, Karen?
It was very start, garbled.
Okay.
You can tell me, I appreciate it. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I think the question is it developers, are developers notified of,
Trees to save, or it's under their own.
Yeah.
Are they notified?
of which
Are
tree,
they notified?
of which trees to save? Or is it an after the fact type of thing?
Should all be on the approved plan.
So they should, go ahead.
They should know what trees that they are required to save based on the approved plan.
Okay, good.
So,
Yeah. Can you hear him if he uses a microphone? Go ahead.
yeah, so I hope not.
Yeah.
The question that you said, but, I've seen a lot of construction going around Charlotte, and it looks like some of these construction sites are pretty huge, and they just cut. So try to make my question shorter. So for large construction projects that require removal of a large amount of trees, would that come to us?
Only if there's, he asked if there's a large construction project that requires a removal of a large number of trees. So that will only come to us if they violate the plan in some way, right, Karen?
That's correct. That's correct. If the plan works it out and it's allowed under the ordinance, fine, but if they violate the plan, then yes, that would be when it would come to the UDO board. If we gave them a violation for cutting down the tree they weren't allowed to do on the approved plan, they appealed it, then it would go to the board. But honestly, we work those out. We say, pay us X amount and replant some trees. You weren't supposed to do that. Usually we work those kind of things out. It's the variances, I think, that will be the request, but we'll see.
That's great. It says you guys say. Should, get David, live with that.
Okay, Karen, thank you so much. I think, is that all the questions for Karen? I think those are all the questions. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm certainly available for anybody that wants to call me anytime.
Okay, you said it. All right, bye.
All the ones, that were just something different, everything else I think is pretty much too close to what, like. Go through with it, email me with any questions.
And, you make sure that, Deborah got a copy of this.
Is there anybody else, who needs it, like, cause,
Me,
yeah,
John Floyd?
yeah.
Board members, so that's let them know. And I guess, folks can have questions all the way up until our next meeting, on June 7th.
sure, yeah, I mean, even the day of the meeting, bring, it's always helpful, when the questions ahead of time. But, meeting is time to discuss, make amendments. Hopefully agree on.
I have one quick question as we're staring down the barrel of the implementation of the UDO. Does anybody on staff have any comments on whether the spirit, purpose, and intent of the zoning ordinance or UDO is altered at all from what it was to what it is? Do we need to be looking at anything through a different lens, or is that fourth pillar of our evaluation pretty much consistent? It was read verbatim last time, and it had some verbiage in there that seemed different from the new UDO. It talked about free flow of traffic or something that didn't seem like it was the same statement. Nothing major, I guess?
No.
Okay.
We'll look into that for you, because
Okay.
I don't want to answer that on the spot without reviewing it. So that's something we can check for you.
And is there a nuance to the term in that the public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved? I guess, I mean, the substantial justice is based on the intent. Public safety is pretty obvious. Well, I mean, just like, so conclusions of the law, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the zoning ordinance. I mean, old zoning said you had to separate uses, like old Euclidean zoning, like the spirit and intent of old Euclidean zoning was separate uses as far away as possible, with only very, very specific times where we're allowing you to mix these uses. But hard and fast, do not mix these uses. That's the spirit and intent of traditional Euclidean zoning. I know that doesn't seem like the hard and fast intent of the new unified development ordinance. And so I just.
Well, I mean, we grouped some of these together still. Just a different type of each. For example, we're not putting industrials in residential neighborhoods. Still residential neighborhoods, you just have some housing types. So from you guys wouldn't see the difference, or wouldn't see necessarily the difference in housing types, but for example, some buffers against for industrial or commercial use against place types. Not away from that. Industrial, you can see there's a wide range of things that we have in industrial now that just didn't have under.
And are you talking about the fourth, variance criteria? Is that
Fourth
what you're-
variance criteria, yeah.
And so that's directly from 160D.
Mhm.
And so you're just asking, is the purpose and intent statement in our new UDO consistent with that?
That's, well, is it changing from, I mean, it refers to the zoning ordinance. And that purpose and intent is probably gonna need to be changed to be the unified development ordinance, because we're not limiting ourselves to just the zoning ordinance anymore. So we've got tree ordinance, well, we don't have tree ordinance. We don't even have a zoning ordinance. We've got a unified development ordinance, right? So that unified development ordinance has been rewritten from top to bottom. And this is referring to the top, and the top's been rewritten. So
Okay, I understand. Yeah, got you.
Solomon touched on permit choice. Does everyone understand what that means, permit choice? So it'll take a few months. You'll still be hearing cases where you're applying permit zoning ordinance, because those applications, anything filed for June 1, those are still going to apply unless that the applicant chooses to proceed under the, so staff will make sure that.
So, yeah, so think of it as, yeah, just right. So think of it kind of like if someone filed today and they said, hey, I want a variance from the 30-foot setback in R3, and they figure out, they go through land development review, they figure out they run into an issue, we would still have to give them the opportunity to file a variance against that.
Maybe reason, the case gets continued, they get an attorney, well, and it's August.
So yeah, so think of it, what Lisa said, there are some cases, obviously, like Tari and Lisa and myself, we've sat down today, we've tried to talk back and say, hey, what are you doing with this? We need to either clear this off, because we're like, hey, there's this date coming up, you need to be aware, and then obviously there's some cases where somebody said, I still want to proceed, because, for example, I'll get to, we had someone that basically, they wanted to go to the board, and you're gonna tell them, hey, you're right, under the current ordinance, this doesn't work. But, oh, by the way, in the UDO, it's gonna work. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna go to the board, for 2 days, you're gonna win. And then that applicant the next day is gonna say, oh, I'm gonna file a permit in the UDO and it's good. So we're like, do you really wanna do, and again, that applicant can say, yeah, I wanna do this because, it's my right. And it's like, I can't stop you, but the reality is, hey, we're trying to make everybody aware of this is what's gonna happen, because I know there was we had one, I think you approved, was last month, where we kind of told them, we're like, if you just wait, EDO is gonna make this all go away, but they said, hey, I gotta, basically, I have financial dealings that are being held up by this, and I gotta move forward. Okay, well, let's just move forward, then we don't wanna hold you, but we need to make this step away.
Couple questions, and I guess we can definitely take some to review it. Have any questions, Jill? Right. Terry, you have to pull back up the live video question.
Okay, we're going.
Oh, you got it up?
Yep.
All right. Let me see if I can cover on you. Is there motions to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconds. By Mr. Hamilton, Ms. Williamson, to adjourn, second by Mr. Shea. I would roll call vote, Mr. Shea. Son. Mr. Williamson.
Williamson, yes.
Mr. Porter.
Or yes.
Yes.